Good evening, or it may be good morning where you are. We certainly have one person who it's morning for. So my name's Mia Bays and I run Bird's Eye View, and we have been a mission to bring ever greater audiences to films by women since 2003. And what we do is we see ourselves as cultural activists. We are a pathfinder for films written by women, directed by women, or based on a book or a story by a woman. And so for us, it's all about the perspective. And the name of that project, which centres around cinemas, which in the UK, I'm delighted to say, are opening next week for after quite significant closures. But of course, we've all been busy watching a lot of work online, and the film Veins of the World that we're centering tonight is available exclusively online in the UK, and we'll come back to how you can watch it if you're joining us without having seen it. And I'm also a filmmaker myself. I've made films that have won an Oscar and been nominated for BAFTAs, and I celebrate 30 years in film this year. So I'm coming from a film perspective, but we have guests who are coming from across different the spectrum of different experiences, and that's what we love doing. So Veins of the World is the film that we're celebrating tonight, and we are at Bird's Eye View massive fans of Byambasuren Davaa's work. First, having seen her work in the early 2000s for The Story of the Weeping Camel, which is an extraordinary piece of work. And then latterly, Cave of the Yellow Dog. And we have been tracking Veins of the World, her latest film, for about a year and a half. And we're just so delighted that Your Screen have brought it to UK screens for an exclusive run. And so we really wanted to talk about and bring together a really intersectional panel tonight to talk about it. So before I talk a bit about the film, I would like to welcome our special guests. So we have, first of all, Jünemann, who is the editor of the film. We also welcome anthropology scholar from the Mongolia and Inner Asia unit at Cambridge University, Dr Elizabeth Turk. And last but not least, we have Phuong, who we first were introduced to because Phuong wrote a terrific review of Veins of the World, which we connected to really strongly. So welcome to everyone. You're all coming from different parts of the world. I'm in London. And Anne, where are you?
I'm in Berlin.
So welcome. And Beth, you are where?
I'm in North Florida, where it's nice and toasty.
Wow, fabulous. And Phuong, you are where?
I'm in Paris right now.
Right, so we have a fully intercontinental panel for you tonight. Tonight and today, sorry, I should be very specific about our time zones as well. So before we get into our conversation, so we will talk between us. We will go one by one and respond to the film and from the different specialisms. Obviously, Anne has worked on the film. Phuong has a perspective as a film critic, and then Beth has a specialism in the cultural connection and the wider context, which we would love to kind of then put in the room with. Then we'll talk amongst ourselves, and then we'll open it up to questions. But please feel free to comment at any point or and share your questions throughout the next hour. So for those of you who've not seen Veins of the World, and we will be posting how you can see it, there is a beautiful quote that is really a song is really integral to this film, and the line is, "When the last vein of gold is pulled from the earth, the world will crumble to dust." And this is a really pivotal line. That's a Mongolian folk song that 11-year-old Amra, who is the main protagonist of the film, Amra is planning to perform that at a national Mongolian talent show. And as with all of Byambasuren's films, this is another meditation on what it means to be Mongolian and the challenges faced by the nomadic community in the face of creeping urbanization. And a bit about the plot. So following the sudden death of the leader of the campaign against mining companies who are destroying the habitat on which they depend, our protagonist age 11, has to step up to kind of carry on the kind of David and Goliath campaign that his father has started. And also the Mongolian folk song that I quoted becomes both his inspiration and his secret weapon. So Anne, I would like to start with you, and just let's talk about how you became involved and how the collaboration then kind of actualized.
Pleasure. How I got involved? Well, it is the producers who have been working with Biamba before. I have been working with them on 2 documentaries before, so we had kind of a good relationship. And the first question they were asking me if I'm a vegetarian, because I also had to go to Mongolia, and it's very difficult to be a vegetarian there. So since I said I'm also eating meat, I was ready to go, and yes, they gave me the book, and I was really in love with the story. And then we went there, and while the shooting, I was also starting to edit, and we were all living in yurts in the steppe. Yeah, it was a very family-like constellation, because also by Biamba, because she had been shooting there before, she had some kind of people she used to work with before, so they got involved again. So there was a big, many people from Germany again met the people from Mongolia. There was a lot of joy, a lot of really beautiful feelings there. And some new people also arrived like me, and we got welcomed very, very beautifully. And so we were shooting in Mongolia for 2 months, and then we went back to Germany, and then we started editing. And it was an interesting process, because I had also been there. I also saw everything. I had a very strong connection also to the countryside, to the people. And during the editing process, I really had to learn to let go a bit again, because I was in love with everything. It was very hard for me to cut moments or scenes out. But with time, Biamba and I, we got there. And it was, and like in Mongolia, I mean, she's carrying the tradition, the Mongolian tradition with her. So even during the editing process, we had sit downs with the producers again, and talk and watch the movie, and have a really collaboration between all of us. It was really, really beautiful.
So, and what were you actually shooting from? I mean, was there quite a strict script? Can you talk us through the actual that kind of process? Because you mentioned a book.
Yeah, it was the first time that Biamba was working with the script, and it was really very, very detailed, and they almost shoot it like this. After the first 2 days, we changed a bit the concept of the camera working, of how long shots are and everything, because we found like it should be adjusted a little bit more. But yeah, we had a script, we had a yurt, a shooting yurt that was like half an hour ago from where we were staying. And well, the interesting part was that the original location, I mean, we were shooting in the area where we're also gold mining. And 5 days before the shooting started, they got the notice that they couldn't shoot there anymore, because this part of the land was sold. And because it's not such a favorable movie for gold mining, they stopped it. They said, like, you can't shoot here anymore. So yeah, they had 5 days to find again a new location. And I mean, it's amazing. They met another nomad, and they were finally shooting on his land. And he also experiences at the moment the story that the film's telling, like the destruction of his earth. where he is living, where he is herding his animals, and this where the water gets dirty, these kind of things. Yeah. So he was.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. So the minds are that powerful that actually they managed to block the
Yes.
filming as soon as they found out what story she was telling.
Mhm. Mhm.
Wow. Okay. I'm not surprised, but yeah, thank God that.
Yeah, they tried to do it all very secretly, like not so many people knew exactly what the film was about,
Right.
but somehow they got a feeling and they said like no. And I mean like 5 days before the shooting, they were really like trying to manipulate.
Wow. And what were the kind of challenges of editing? Like one of them you said it's quite unusual for an editor to actually be there for the full shoot, especially when you're actually filming away from where you're editing. So I can understand that it was like it is for often directors, very hard to let go of material when you've been there.
Yes.
And so talk us through that a bit more. And what were the other challenges in compiling and constructing the film and the edit?
Well, I mean, we had Mongolian actors. No, I mean, Amra, the kids are no actors, no, but the parents, and well, Asian actors sometimes, for example, are very exaggerated in they do a lot. So we had to find a balance, between this is the way also a Mongolian film, Mongolian audience would like it, and also European or American audience, can really accept it and don't think it's like too much. And well, what was also very interesting that the little boy, Amra, had such a charm, and everybody was so interested in him that we also in the beginning we had to switch more to him, because before we thought like we would to tell the story of the parents or more of the father, but everybody was so focused on this little boy that, for example, we switched and did some things there to highlight him more, to give him more space and yeah, cut out a little bit more of the father. And then there was also, I mean, there's a lot of music in the film, so this was also a big part in the editing process already, because we found our composers during the editing process. So first off, I had to look for music and use some things that I found, and then we started to work with the composers again as well, and then adjusted some sounds, some scenes. Also, the composers were very flexible. They gave me like various sounds that altogether was one musical or one score, but I could really do in the editing process, like highlighting something or muting it. So there was a lot of work on the music as well. And and we often went to big screens to really have a feeling how long things can stand. I mean, at some point you have seen all the images for such a long time. It's still beautiful, but not that interesting. But if you watch it on a big screen again, you feel more like, I'm looking for the car over there, and then I see the yurt there. So this was also part of the process.
And can you talk to us about what it's like to work with Biamba and her kind of approach? I mean, her gaze, particularly the way that I just feel like I never look through eyes like hers. I think they're very special, the way she centers particularly children and the way that the land is also centered. But equally, I know I may be romanticizing and projecting, but it does feel like she's a very special filmmaker. So can you talk through what she liked to be around? What did you find most inspiring?
Well, we did kind of our daily work was like I was alone, and then we met during the weeks for some hours. And I mean, she's a very soft and sensitive person, and so even small things that I've changed, she's she sees immediately, no, and she's curious about it, and so we had really like many talks about what I like and what I don't like about it, and what she likes and why it is important for her, for example. And yeah, she was also very eager about explaining really the whole situation, like not letting anything of the facts fall out. That was very, very important for her. And I mean, she's in love also with the people there. So she was very, very, she had a very strong eye for good acting and for, yes, subtle movements, subtle eye, subtle view, subtle, yeah, for these kind of, she's a very detailed filmmaker in the editing process. I really enjoyed this. We could really work, and she's experimental. She's not stuck, you know. She doesn't like it has to be like this. She was like, all right, then do it and show me tomorrow, and then we'll see. It was really an ideal position, an ideal working process. I was really enjoying this.
Beautiful. Thank you, Anne. Phuong, can I just bring you in now? Talk us through where did you actually see this on the big screen? Talk us through when you actually saw the film and your response to it.
So I write a review for The Guardian, and so I got a screening link for this film, and my first response immediately when I see the opening is that, oh, I wished I could have seen this in the theater. And it's not simply because it's open with beautiful landscape. There's a lot of film that does that. But like you said before, there's something very special about her gaze, that even in the vastness of all of that, you can feel a kind of lived-in quality. There's something that feels very intimate about it. And when the film progresses, and then you see the family, and you see, oh, there's tragedy as well as moment of comics and happiness that happen, it just feels so intimate in the little detail that she noticed, in the way that she could make the details seem as substantial and as vast as the landscape itself. And I live in Paris, but I'm from Vietnam actually, and haven't been able to see my family for like almost 2 years because of pandemic. So that really, just to see that kind of familial dynamic portrayed in such a real and genuine way, really, really moved me and connect me to the film. And I actually have not seen, I was not familiar with her works before. And immediately after I finished it, I seek out the story of the Weeping Camel, which is also wonderful and lovely. And yeah, I guess I connect with it on a very visceral, emotional level first. And when I read the review, it made me think more about the visual, of course, and all the like filmmaking details that go with it.
And also, it's the kind of delicate balance between the kind of representation of the people, particularly the wonderful character of Amra, and I mean that performance is incredible, isn't it? And then also the land and what is happening to the land and how we feel about that.
Yeah, and what I really like about it is that it doesn't feel anthropological. Because I come to this not really knowing anything about Mongolian culture or nomadic culture, but I don't feel like this is being presented for my gaze, as that I'm looking from the outside in. You can tell that there's a really intimate and deep understanding in the film, because there's a dramatic story that happened, and there's a lot of like up and down story, but there's also just like the little rituals. The film very much focused on the ritual that they have, the way they lead their herds, the way they like go to the market. There's this thing when the father and Amra go to the shaman tree, and that tree figures a lot in the film as well as the central song. And to have that details really nuanced the context of this exploitation that's happening on the land.
Wonderful, thank you, Phuong. That makes me actually want to ask Anne another question before we then welcome in Beth. And what do you know about Biamba's relationship to Mongolia? How much time does she spend there? She certainly grew up there, and then she went to film school in Germany, as I understand it, and most of her films are German, Mongolian, and sometimes other funded by other sources. Can you just talk us through her relationship as you understand it from having worked with her on one film?
Well, I mean, she's living in Germany, but she has still many contacts with Mongolia. She's not only doing films, for example, she's also making photographies and doing, how you say, she's speaking to people about Mongolia in all over Germany and Austria. So, and for this part, she's not every year in Mongolia, but she's often there also to make new photographs, to explore new things. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Yep, that's a great point that you raised, Phuong. I think the authenticity of the gaze, it doesn't feel like a touristic sweep in, sweep out. Yeah, it's a very beautiful, kind, generous perspective. Beth, can we welcome you, please? Can you tell us a little bit more about your work? Actually, I think really what your studies and your excavations have been, and then your response to the work.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, Mia and Bird's Eye View, for having me. This is such a fantastic event and a beautiful film. So I'm a social anthropologist at Mongolian and Eurasia Studies Unit at Cambridge University. And I've been researching for the past, since 2010 or so 11 years, landscapes, relation with land, especially in a healing capacity. So health-related practices around nature and alternative kind of healing practices. So that often takes me to remote places in the country, this one healing tree or this one sacred rock and that sort of thing. So it's been exciting to sort of navigate, as Mongolians sort of navigate a new relationship with land and landscape that allows for spirituality that was in very many ways repressed and suppressed during 69 years of state socialism. It's a very interesting time to be studying alternative medicine and spiritual practices. So it's been exciting for me. And this definitely connects to the film itself. So I'm just so pleased to have the opportunity to watch it. As a social anthropologist, there's so much to draw out, but I was hoping to speak a little bit about mining because it's such an important theme in a country navigating the shift to marketized economy, beginning from only 30 years ago. And while mineral extraction is not unique to the age of the market, with important mines during the state socialist era, one being a copper mine not far from Ulaanbaatar, and one being a copper mine to the north of Ulaanbaatar, and one a coal mine just to the east. It's really today the mining industry plays such a vital role in Mongolia's economy and in public discourse. There are deep feelings amongst many Mongolians of ambivalence, mining, the promise and the curse in a sense of mining. For viewers that aren't aware, the country's mineral wealth is estimated to be valued between $1 trillion and $3 trillion, primarily in copper, coal, and gold. And over the last 3 years, the mining sector has been responsible for approximately 23% of the country's GDP, so not a small chunk. And this wealth primarily derives from two very large mines, one of which is the size of Manhattan in New York City, so massive mine in the South Gobi. And both of these mines, the majority of shares are held by foreign-owned companies. So this film definitely hits on those themes. But I was hoping to put sort of land relations in a bit of historical context, if I can. So two of the most important changes for herders since the shift from state socialist government to centralized economy and multi-party parliamentary system and marketized economy has been decollectivization on the one hand and privatization of land on the other. And we certainly see themes of herding families helping each other out in informal ways that was much more institutionalized during the time of herding collectives. And this has meant that herding for most families that engage this sort of economic activity has become much more precarious and challenging since decollectivization. But I wanted to spend just a minute talking about privatization of land, as Veins of the Earth centrally deals with the problem this has created for herding families, not to mention for the many natural resources and pasture lands across Mongolia, 70% of which have become degraded. And we can talk about why later if it's interesting to folks. But historically, herders have engaged in a usufruct relation with the land. It's a term that someone came up with, usufruct. And the idea being that you are allowed to use land that doesn't belong to you, and you're able to keep the fruits of your labor, in this case, livestock, as the number increases, and the products derived from them. But this usufruct relationship hinges on the requirement that you don't destroy or deplete the naturally occurring resources there. And although the institutions in power changed, that is, from wealthy landowners and Buddhist monasteries to the state socialist state, this usufruct relation remained relatively unchanged from the pre-revolutionary neo-feudal pastoral economy until the onset of marketization in the early 90s. So the state-run institutions ensured throughout the last century, the 20th century, that herding practices were responsibly done for herders, their livestock, and the natural environment. And so as the commons became uncommon, beginning in the early 90s, there appeared a new resource to be exploited, land, and especially what lies beneath it. This new resource is becoming rapidly less available as powerful mining companies begin to privatize lucrative land. But I think this brings up a really, this sort of central theme for the film, through my eyes, was one of responsibility. And this is both pressing and ethnographically salient in Mongolia, expressed in many of the conversations I've had during fieldwork there. The narrative is that no one's looking out for the average Mongolian, there's no one's protecting nature. Everything is disorganized, and there's not a lot of regulation and a lot of care, a real lack of care. This notion of how do we protect the natural environment as we approach a point of no return, and more centrally, how do we learn to value it differently? Because at present, global capitalist logics only see the natural world in terms of what can be exploited for cash value. And this is obviously not just a concern for Mongolia, but for many, many, many locations. So there's so much more to say, but I'll leave it there for now and some first thoughts.
Wonderful. Thank you, Beth. Anna, wanted to just bring you in about how much did you talk about the kind of wider, impact of the film and the story as you were making it, and throughout the kind of journey of completion, just in response to some of what Beth has centered.
Well, I mean, it's strange. I mean, maybe not, but many Mongolians don't know about it. They don't know that their home country is exploited, and they are in love with their country. I have never seen people who are that much in love and proud of their country and their nature as they are. So we had like moments when the people came back from the shootings, and they were really, really sad because they were facing the facts, and they were repeating the same sentences again, and it made them very, very aware how hard it is. No, so that's also what I said about the editing process, that it was very, very important for Biamba to really mention all the facts, and sometimes it was even more important than how the story is floating. It was like, no, this needs to be said. And also when we had some test screenings with Mongolians who are living in Germany, they were really, really shocked. Wow. They don't talk about it in Mongolia, or let's say the country is such a big place, and the nomads, they don't know their rights, and suddenly when they have to know their rights, they don't know how to get to their rights. I mean, it's like what you said about the land. They are living at this land that their parents used to live, and their grandparents and their grand-grandparents. So there is no they don't have a paper like this is their land, but for them it's their land. So all these things with mining, it's a total bust. They don't know what to do, and if you are in Mongolia, I mean, you're in the steppe, you are nowhere. So you have to look and to find for someone to help, and the nomads, they don't know how to do. So it's a really tough situation over there, especially for the nomads. They don't know.
This is another version of the usual colonial story, isn't it? Because I'm sure that the mines are who owns the mines? Is it Europe? Is it?
No, they are all different kinds of. It's not Mongolian. No, they are from all over the world. The people who were forbidding the shooting, it's a mine from from an Australian guy. And the thing is, I mean, you could do the mining in a way that is still good for the nature, you know? You could renaturate, you could do things, but they don't. This is the thing. I mean, you can't stop the mining. I understand this because people want gold or people want or whatever they want. But you could do it in a way that really helps the nature to to relive again, you know? You could do it in a nature-based way, but they don't think about that. They don't care about. And it's not the Mongolian who getting rich, you know?
No, it never is it? Beth, can we go back to you actually? And I mean, I'm really interested in this aspect, just switching from mine, we'll come back to mining because it is such a central point. The focus that you have on the healing art. And did you study cosmology? I'm really interested in kind of like the other aspects of the culture that are quite important within not just this story, but also Byamba's other work as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Actually, the current grant that I'm on, which is funded by the Arts and Humanities Research Council, is looking at calling it cosmopolitical heritage. So how certain cosmological understandings of heritage get formed from sort of top down. So what ways the sort of geopolitical forces, including UNESCO and the like, even tourist agencies, sort of help to construct an idea of national culture and sort of national heritage. The idea that it is something that people feel very close and dear to, but that it is a social phenomenon that is changing all the time, that is historical, just like anything else.
So that speaks to what Anne was talking about with this incredible kind of national pride, perhaps, like where, how is that formed in your view?
Absolutely. Yeah, national pride is massive, and I think it scales both up and down. It's seen both on a national scale and also a localized scale. So the idea of someone's homeland as being very sacred and very important and valuable shines through in this film, and is also very ethnographically salient. People feel really proud to be Mongolian and from where they're from.
Phuong, can I bring you back in? Was there, what else would you like to center? Are there a particular scene that you wanted to pull up, or asking Anne any questions about the making of?
Actually, like what Beth just say about pride and also what you said earlier about healing, it really makes me think about music in this film, and the song that centers all. And as if I think there's like a healing power to the sort of music, traditional Mongolian music that's seen in the film, because there's an earlier moment when the family just had dinner, and the little daughter asked the father to sing a song to her, and her father said that, oh, like our grandfathers are our own musician, and our great grandfathers are musicians. So that this idea of the music travel from generation to generation. And in Davaa, the film, the story of the weeping camel, climax of the film is someone an artist singing a song to the camel, and then which allow the camel to sort of breastfeed, that's the word, to her coat, which he has not been able to do. So I just wonder whether like that have anything, context about this music, like tradition and the healing power of it. I think it's very interesting in the film.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think healing and sort of the healing arts and things outside of a typically sort of biomedical perspective is something lots of Mongolians are excited to sort of re-embrace as part of their heritage that many feel was kept from them during 70 years of state socialism, especially sort of post-30s, when lots of monasteries were destroyed and monks and a lot of traditions revolving around Buddhism was. And while most Mongolians sort of see biomedicine as sort of the medical bread and butter, you have your GP, you have your family care unit that you go to and get most of your medical care met. There is sort of, for lots of folks, this underlying understanding of, well, maybe there's something outside of a biomedical perspective that's causing this illness, and that takes people to very far-flung places, both in Mongolia, sort of geopositionally, and elsewhere. It could take you to a rock in the middle of nowhere, or it could take you to a song that a famous person is singing. So people are really embracing, I think, sort of alternative ways of looking at health and well-being. And I say alternative because for so many years, there was Soviet medicine, and that was pretty much it. So it is kind of outside of the typical conception of human body that was part of the Russian legacy that Mongolians inherited around the early to mid 20th century.
Wonderful, thank you.
I remember a story that I could share in this context about the natural medicine, because we had to organize a machine, and it was the same thing like before, like 2 days before they canceled us this mining machine. So we had to find another one. And the Mongolian style is not to go ask directly and then get it. The Mongolian style is to sit down and to talk a lot, and then at some point bring up what you want. And in exchange, we had to give them no money or anything, but we have to give them a tongue of a wolf, because apparently he had some aching in the throat, and this is supposed to help. And we also, because of this, all these nice and friendly, they also gave us a cow. This is the way, you know, they're doing there. It's not about in this case, no, it was not about money or anything. It was about politeness, being together, and then it's very exotic for them. It's exotic, no? You know, Germans are there shooting together with Mongolians. The story, then at some point they also want to help, but yeah, like the tongue of the wolf, no? That was the key.
Absolutely, and there are so many sort of parts of different wild animals that are considered medicinal, and many of which are illegal to hunt now. So it's a whole sort of conundrum over sort of populations that are dwindling in terms of wolves and other animals too. Tending to one's own needs in terms of their healthcare and well-being can take Mongolians to very, very different places in terms of what that looks like. That might seem outside of the realm of health and well-being to somebody from the global north.
Yes.
Beth, can you? I'm just interested in, is there anything relevant in terms of Soviet legacy that's also relevant that you want to put in our minds? Having watched it, or for those who've watched it, are yet to watch it. Really interested in the kind of wider context, things that we may not have seen. Absolutely.
I mean, just sort of one thing that sticks out, and it's very sort of ethnographic and maybe anecdotal, is the value in being a mechanic. So Amra's father is a mechanic, and all that sort of progress in terms of technology and technological advancement and scientific findings that happened during the 20th century and sort of Soviet derived are still very highly valued there today. So to be a mechanic and a driver is a really, really valued position. But I suppose just thinking more broadly in terms of progress and living a good life, that seemed to be very important to lots of characters, and also just in Mongolia in general. What does a good life look like, and what does progress mean for me? What does it mean for my family? What does it mean for my country? And that can take people in, again, sort of different directions. It might mean mining for some folks, and it might mean fighting off massive mining companies tooth and nail. So the idea of sort of progress, that idea, but not necessarily finding some sort of cohesion in terms of or understanding in terms of what that actually means.
Wonderful, thank you. Phuong, I'd like to invite you to share which is what scene would you like to talk about? What's your favorite scene, or the scene that is most memorable to you?
There are so many. I think perhaps my most favorite scene is when Amra sing the song to his father for the first time. Because right before that, they were, I don't know if this is the right word, harvesting salt. They were taking the salt from the land. And again, that just speaks to like how tactile the landscape in this film feel, because the character would be touching the surface of the land or touching shaman tree. And then it was just a beautiful moment of father-son bonding in this beautiful landscape. And it's very much of the moment. You feel present in that moment, but you also know that that way of life is in danger, that that it's going to disappear very soon, because right after he sing that beautiful song, it cut to his mother trying to take some water from the well, but the well has become so much drier that she had to take a belt from her waist and like try to dig deeper so that she can get the water. And that's, I think, one of my most favorite thing, because just this fragility, you see the resilience of their relationship, but also just the fragility of their living condition.
Beautiful, thank you, Phuong. And Beth, what was the scene that stuck with you the most?
Oh, that's a great question. My mind was sort of doing something different. So if I could just say that first, in response to what was just said about the scene with the well, something I was really hoping to bring up, and I'm really happy that it did, is the way that women herders are often not really seen as the central sort of herders of the family. It's usually it's considered a man's job, a man's occupation, but they're so central, not only to the physically demanding aspects of herding, but to the decisions that are made every single day. So this is very important decisions. So it was really great to see that valued and really come across in the film itself, because it doesn't get highlighted all that often. But in terms of a favorite scene, there are so many. It's going to be a funny one. So I didn't realize fully that the sort of shenanigans that Amra and his friend are doing. So they make a new car and they put it under it with bales of hay and things. I didn't realize that's what they were doing in that instance. So when the daughter throws her ball and the mom takes it off this makeshift car, this fake car, I was, oh, that's it. And it was just so playful, with the sugar in the motor and the little things that these boys do to sort of push against, the man or, the folks in power. So I just found that really delightful.
And I'd just like to, you respond to those particular scenes, because obviously you constructed them, and maybe what's the moment that you're proudest of, that you felt was most resonant?
Well, I mean, what Phuong was mentioning, the scene, or you both were mentioning the scene with the mother and the water. This is when I saw it the first time, I was really like, wow, this is the strongest moment ever, because it has so much physical power, and at the same time it tells so much. It tells the whole story. You don't need to explain anything more. It's there, That's what I really, really like about it. And well, I have to say, with this film, it's really, I love the beginning and I love the ending. I really, in the beginning, I'm so excited to see it because all these beautiful, beautiful landscape. And in the end, when I heard everything, I'm still always crying when he's singing and everything gets sums up. And then we have these wide images from the drone from the countryside there. It really, every time I get goosebumps. And it also was when we had the screenings. I remember one screening was the last screening. We had the big ending, and I knew that's it. We got the film, and so this is all connected somehow. I mean, I also, it's kind of strange, but I also met the eagle spirit there in Mongolia. I really had a lot of contact with the eagle spirit, and he's supposed to say it's like the messenger. And I was always praying, like, to really get out the message of this film to the people. And the last screening I saw it, I felt like the eagle spirit is now in the movie and he's going out now. It's ready. And so I'm really connected to the ending in a strong way. Mm-hmm.
So Anne, you were present so you were part of screenings. Were they test screenings where you were showing it to native Mongolians in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
as well as maybe native German people as well? Did you have a mix of views?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I have to say for the Germans, it's also, I got really like emotional reviews, like even when we wasn't finished with the film and there was still things like missing or not well balanced, they were immediately a great emotional response to the story. And I think the difference really is that for the Mongolians, it's their country. They know it. They are there. They are reminded of this beautiful place, and this is so you feel like there is some hurt there that's really from their roots, like. But from the Germans, it's like they're watching something out there, but they don't know, And it's a story, like we said before, that's also happening in many other places in in the world. But everybody is about the landscape, that it's so big, so wide. For everybody, it's a great miracle. And I think for this also people are very emotional about that this gets destroyed,
The kind of artifact that I wanted to mention most, which I just sounds just stunning, is the shaman tree and the holy spot that is witness to the child's traumas as well as the land's traumas too. And that's just so powerful that I just wanted to know, is that culturally specific? And Beth, maybe can you speak to that? And then Anne and Phuong, maybe get your reactions. Anne, obviously you were part again of creating that, and Phuong, you wrote about it a bit, so maybe let's start with Beth.
Sure. So when I encountered it in the film, I thought first Ganzmod, which is the term in Mongolian, so it means a single tree or only tree, and finding these very important and oftentimes wrapping hatak or scarves around them and valuing them and showing them that they matter via local practice and things, leaving things for the tree, burning incense, and that kind of thing is common. It's common when you're sort of driving through the landscape. You'll see a ganzmod here, a lone tree there or there, and you'll see it valued in the same way. I wasn't sure if it was shamanic, but it could very well be. It could very well have embodied the spirit of a shaman. And that would be interesting since the Buddhist ritual happens right there too. So, Buddhism and shamanism have competed for, thousands of years. They've also come together at certain times too. So very similar practices, but also seen as very different. So that's interesting to me. But anyway, yes, certainly a really important part of the film, and for lots of Mongolians too, that would be very sort of relatable.
And yes, if you can talk a little bit about that, the construction of those scenes.
Well, the tree was very essential. We also, for a long time, we thought we would open with this because, it's symbolizing this long story, it's a ritual. It's a connection with the nature, and it's valuing the nature, and it's like, it's not a shaman in this moment, but still it's connected to the shaman tradition, which is very strong still in Mongolia, no? And so, this was always like really a key scene for us. And but then in the editing process, we had to really look quite a while for the space, because in the beginning it was nobody could understand what we were relating to, because the lack of this kind of tradition. So we really had to look to find a good moment to edit in the movie, and I think now it's quite balanced, that people can feel what it really means, this tree. Mm-hmm.
And Phuong, it's just such a stunningly cinematic symbol as well, isn't it? It's just really beautiful. What would you like to share about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a cliche to say something like, "Oh, the landscape is like another character in the movie." But what I really love about the way the tree is shot is that sometimes you would have like a point of view shot from the tree, as if the tree is watching over all this distraction, but also this like little intimate moment between family members. And for me personally, I feel like it just symbolizes again this long tradition of nomadic people living in this land, and it's as if there's like a greater force overlooking all of it that's happening. And that's one again symbolized by what Anne said earlier about the end. To see that destruction from above like that is almost gain like another spiritual level to it.
Mm-hmm. That's a fabulous observation, actually, Phuong, and it makes me want to ask Anne, did you talk about whose perspective are those moments? Is that a really important observation? That those moments, are we seeing through the tree and the land's eyes at any point throughout the film? Was that kind of purposeful?
No. we didn't thought about it, but we always wanted to have his, maybe in a way, I'm not sure, because we always were talking about, how present is the tree, how often can we show it, like always be reminded of this tree, of this story of the relationship of the whole history. So I don't know if we could say like watch through the eye of the trees, but more like really have still the connection, still be reminded over and over again, you know. So that's why we always during the shooting as well, we're looking for scenes to shoot them with the tree at some point. You know?
Wonderful, thank you. Beth, I wanted to pick up again on the role of women actually, and just expand on that a bit more, and other kind of observations in relation to the film. Mothers are always important in Byamba's films, always. So yeah, it would be nice to have a wider context from you.
Absolutely. You know, mothers it's a very valued thing to become a mother. I was asked many times during field work, well, why aren't I a mom yet? You know, you're earning a PhD, why aren't you a mother yet? Well, just give me some time. But it is highly, highly valued. And part of that is, you know, we can see in the fact that 40% of Mongolia's population is under 18. So there are a lot of new children around. And it's again, part of the sort of passion for the nation, interest in being Mongolian and building up a nation of Mongolians in a way that is just very prideful. Yeah, I mean, mothers are considered both, you know, for lots of Mongolians, both soft and caring, but also strong. I mean, you can see that in the scene where the auntie and the mother go straight to the mine and just give them hell, you know, and that's very protective, but very warm and loving. And that's something that I can imagine. I didn't speak to Mongolians who've watched this film, but I can imagine that to be something that's very relatable. Lots and lots of folk songs written to and for one's mother, almost as many as to and for one's homeland. So it's mothers are very revered for lots of Mongolians.
Wonderful, thank you. Phuong and Anne, is there anything that you would like to share, or in response to anything anyone has said?
Well, I can add one fact to the mother-female situation in Mongolia, because it's a saying and it's really true. If you want to get something organized over there, you have to do it with a woman. The men are so well in driving in this step where there are no streets, and they are very well in building things like this. But the ones that have the saying, the ones that organize, the ones that are really caring for everything, it's the women. And they are very well respected for this. It's very beautiful.
Phuong, anything else to share?
I just have one question for Anne. I wonder how Dava directs children, because she's so good at it. And Amra is wonderful, but also even the little girl in the film, she's so natural. And sometimes you would see these scenes of the family having dinner or just having conversation or something, and the girl just like she wants in the background, which add an even more authentic, genuine atmosphere to it. So I just wonder how she does it, how Dava does it so well.
Great question.
Well, they were rehearsing a bit, but there was also a lot of talking, and I think it's also because we all lived together in this one camp, and also the two kids were sleeping in one yurt, and sometimes even the father figure was also sleeping with them in the same yurt. So they were all very familiar with each other. And during the shooting, it was also, again, very on the details, but subtle, you know, very soft. And Amra was really also, he was not playing himself, but he was like really natural doing the things, no, you know. And the little girl, I mean, she's sugar. She can almost do everything, you know, and always cute with her. Yeah. And they are all very well educated, you know. They really behave. There's silence when there has to be silence, and there is chatter and laughter and everything when it has to be. It's a very educated, in this way, educated people there. I mean, I remember. Yeah.
Sorry, go for it.
Yeah, I remember the first evening when we got there, we had dinner all together outside in the steppe, and everybody was presenting himself. And I mean, the Mongolians, they were singing songs or reciting poems or whatever. And Amra was he was begging to do a very good job on everything. he was so cute and so aware of what this topic is all about. We were even there without the camera. We were like, okay, this is the boy. This is really amazing. He had such a strong energy and charm. It's yeah.
Can you talk a bit about his the performance of the song? Actually, is there anything interesting to know about that? I presume that's really him singing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's him singing, and well, what can I talk? I mean, for him, it was also very, very exciting at the end. It was at the end of the shooting as well that we went to the city, and then to be there in the studio and perform the song, that was really amazing for him. And but for example, the recording we did before in the step, so it was playing there in playback. And I think that was a really good idea, because in the city the energy was so different, and in the step it was very clear and soft, and also like slow. You know, he was singing very clear and with a strong voice. Whether in the city it was much more difficult for him, but he was so excited. I mean, he's actually living in the desert of Gobi, so it was. Yeah, it was the first time for him to go to the city, to go even much far away than 15 kilometers from his home. Yeah, it was everything new for him. His father one time came to visit us, and he brought, I think, milk from horses, you know, but like it already got fermented, and so he's. For him, it was all a big adventure, totally new. He wants to be an actor now. No, he wants to be a singer now.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. Beth, is there anything that you would like to leave us with in terms of, I mean, because really underneath it, there is a very serious message to this film. And you know, what can people who are viewing this, who may be kind of activated by it, what should we know, or what could we do? I know you're not a campaigner, but yeah, do you have any thoughts that you'd like to share?
I suppose it's, you know, a few thoughts. One of which being not seeing Mongolia as this remote, you know, off the edge of the earth kind of place. It really, the struggles that many folks deal with there are central struggles for many other people's lives all over the world. Sort of thinking about the way, for instance, the natural environment is valued, or in many ways devalued in the kinds of global economic system that we have presently. So how to revalue that? You know, how do we start to care about the earth when it doesn't really have a place in capitalist logics aside from exploitative? That's one thought, and you know, to connect those with other folks around the world that are doing very similar things. You know, the North Dakota protests here with oil and things, sort of Native Americans, and the protests there, and Pachamama, and you know, South America, and other places where nature is taking on a valued role. So I suppose there's some hopeful aspects to it in terms of pushback. There's been a couple of protests in Mongolia that have been successful. One in terms of one of those very big mines I mentioned in South Gobi, and another much further north in Saleng. So that massive gains were won by folks who fought back. So I thought that actually the David and Goliath theme here in this film was ethnographically salient.
Yep.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Anne, do you have anything else before we wrap?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for this talk. Especially, I think we have all different kinds of perspectives here. I really enjoy this, that we don't not only talk about the movie like in a cinematic way, but also really about the impact, that what it is about, because it's very, very important for us. So thank you also for your words regarding all different kinds of parts in the world, because yeah, I feel the same way, and I really wish and hope this film will touch many people's hearts, and they will think about what we can do.
Beautiful. And Phuong, would you have anything to close with?
Just that I hope everyone will watch this film. Is what I hope to do in my review, because it's just it's so special. I really can't stress how special the film is, and I really hope it's such an illuminating conversation. And if you haven't seen it, it's wonderful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I would just like to say, you know, the timing of this was regarding Mental Health Awareness Week in the UK, and the theme this year is Connect with Nature. So we just felt like this film was such a balm, and it's just so cinematically stunning, but it's also thought-provoking. And, you know, it's the kind of film that, you know, it just feels quite rare. And Byamba's gaze, as we said before, is really special. So please seek the film out. You can see it in the UK on your screen, and it's there exclusively until May the 23rd. And you can use the code BEV25 and you get 25% off the viewing. And please, as many people watch it as possible. Phuong's fabulous Guardian review. If we haven't convinced you, that will. So thank you so much to our special guest, Anne Jünemann, to Dr. Elizabeth Turk. Thank you for your great insights and context. And Phuong, thank you so much for your insights as well around the film. And yeah, it was lovely meeting you all. Thank you for gathering. And it's not quite as good as in person, but it's not far off, and we're all in different countries. So it's just a lovely thing that we couldn't do in person otherwise. So thank you so much, and see you all again soon. And yeah, enjoy the movie. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All the best. Bye.